What if the player who trained with Messi every day and faced Ronaldo in the most brutal clásicos of modern football finally admitted something he never dared to say while he was still playing? Gerard Piqué has broken his silence, and his confession changes everything. Because according to him, one of them doesn't beat you with strength. He doesn't even beat you with speed. He beats you by making you defend the wrong reality, and the other one makes you afraid of being human. So the question is simple. Who was really harder to defend, Messi or Ronaldo? Before we begin, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because what you're about to hear comes from someone who stood exactly between Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, and survived both. To understand why Gerard Piqué's words hit so hard, you have to understand who he really is in this story. Piqué wasn't just another defender watching greatness from a distance. He lived it every day, every training session, every night under maximum pressure. For more than a decade at FC Barcelona, he shared the field and the locker room with Lionel Messi. He saw how Messi trained in silence, how he walked while others ran, how he destroyed defensive systems without ever raising his voice. At the same time, Piqué was one of the defenders who most frequently faced Cristiano Ronaldo directly during the fiercest years of El Clásico and the Champions League. And here's the paradox. At 38 years old, Messi is still leading offensive statistics, still piling up numbers that seem to mock time, with more than 70 goal contributions in a single season across all competitions. Ronaldo, at his peak, delivered between 50 and 60 goals per season, turning knockout matches into personal stages. Two legends. Two statistical monsters. But according to Piqué, the numbers don't explain the real problem, because defending them was never about tackles. It was about surviving what happens before the tackle. So how did one man experience both in such different ways? For years, Gerard Piqué avoided this conversation, not because he didn't have an opinion, but because football, especially at the highest level, is political. And when you're still playing, every word becomes a headline. Every nuance turns into a weapon. While wearing the Barcelona shirt, how could he openly dissect Messi without seeming biased? And how could he analyze Ronaldo without reopening old Clásico wars? So Piqué stayed silent, until retirement. Only after stepping away from the pitch did something change. No more locker rooms to protect, no more rivalries to fuel, no more need to please anyone. In a long reflective interview, Piqué was finally asked the question fans had been asking for more than a decade. You've played with Messi and defended against Ronaldo. Who was harder to face? He didn't answer immediately, and that pause mattered. Because when a defender like Piqué hesitates, it's not for drama, it's because the truth is uncomfortable. Then he said something that sounded simple but wasn't. It's not about who is better, it's about how they destroy you. That was the moment. Not a debate about trophies, not a list of Ballon d'Ors, but the confession of a defender who had been left out of position, out of breath, and out of answers against both men. And what he revealed next explains why defending Messi and Ronaldo felt like two completely different sports. When Gerard Piqué talks about Lionel Messi, his tone changes. Not louder, not more emotional, lower. Because Messi, according to Piqué, was never a problem you could solve with aggression. You don't feel him, Piqué once explained. And that's the danger. As a defender, you're trained to read signals, a shoulder drop, a sudden acceleration, a change of direction. Messi gives you none of that. He doesn't announce his intention. He doesn't accelerate when you expect it. Sometimes it doesn't even look like he's attacking. And in that moment, you're already lost. Piqué describes it as a distortion of reality. You think you're in the right place. Your body is well positioned. The line is compact. The angle is closed. But Messi doesn't attack you. He attacks the space you haven't even noticed yet. One step to the left. Too late. Half a second of hesitation. Fatal. That's why so many elite defenders look ridiculous against him, not because they're slow, but because they're defending yesterday's situation while Messi is already playing tomorrow's move. At 38, when explosive speed should be gone, Messi still does this, still pulls defenders out of position, still forces entire defensive blocks to collapse with a single touch. More than 70 goal contributions in a season aren't just numbers, they're proof of something deeper. Messi doesn't beat defenders, he reprograms them. When you realize you were wrong, the pass has already been played, the shot has already been taken, and you're left asking the most painful question in football. How did he get there when I was sure I was right? According to Piqué, that feeling is worse than being beaten for pace, because speed can be respected, but being wrong without knowing why? That stays with you. If Messi makes you question your perception, Cristiano Ronaldo makes you question your courage. According to Gerard Piqué, defending against Ronaldo was never silent. It was loud, physical, relentless. With Cristiano, Piqué explained, you can't switch off. Not for a second. Because Ronaldo doesn't need you to be out of position. He just needs you to be imperfect. One step too deep. A jump half a second late. A glance at the ball instead of at the man. That's enough. Ronaldo attacks defenders directly, challenges you in the air, in the box, in transition, forces you into duels where doubt is punished immediately. And the fear doesn't come from what he does, once, it comes from what he does again and again. As a defender, you start thinking ahead. If I lose this duel, it's a goal. If I misjudge this jump, it's a goal. If I relax for a single moment, it's a goal. That psychological pressure builds. By minute 60, your legs are still there. But your mind isn't. That's why Ronaldo scored so many decisive goals in Champions League knockout matches. That's why his numbers explode when the margin for error disappears. He doesn't bend the system like Messi. He breaks the individual. Piqué admits that against Ronaldo, defenders often defend not to lose rather than defend to win. And that's already defeat. Because when fear enters your decision-making, your timing disappears. His positioning follows, and suddenly the goal you were trying to avoid becomes inevitable. Messi confuses you, Ronaldo scares you. Two different nightmares, equally destructive. What makes Gerard Piqué's confession so powerful isn't that he chooses a side, it's that he refuses to. In football history, we've seen extraordinary attackers before. Ronaldo Nazario destroyed defenses with speed. Zinedine Zidane dominated space with elegance. Thierry Henry combined both. But Piqué's words suggest something unprecedented. Never before had two players existed at the same time, creating two completely different forms of defensive trauma. Messi forces teams to redesign their structure. He doesn't care about your pressing triggers, your defensive line, or your marking system. He makes the system look obsolete. Ronaldo forces individuals to exceed their own limits. He doesn't care how compact your block is. He attacks your concentration, your timing, your courage. And this explains something crucial. Why do some defenders say Messi is impossible to read? Why do others say against Ronaldo it's impossible to relax? One destroys geometry, the other destroys nerves. That's why the GOAT debate never ends, because fans argue with numbers while defenders remember sensations. The feeling of being in the right place and still losing, or the feeling of knowing exactly what's coming and still being unable to stop it. Piqué's confession doesn't close the debate, it redefines it. It tells us that greatness isn't only measured in goals or trophies, but in the kind of fear you plant in your opponent's mind. And maybe the most uncomfortable truth is this: football never figured out how to defend either of them, and there may never be two like this again. So when Gerard Piqué says one makes you defend the wrong space, the other makes you fear a mistake, he isn't comparing trophies, he's describing survival. Now it's your turn. If you were a defender, would you rather be confused for 90 minutes or terrified for 90 minutes? Tell us in the comments. If this video made you think differently about Messi and Ronaldo, like it, share it, and subscribe to the channel for more stories told without filters. Because sometimes the truth doesn't come from the numbers, it comes from those who had to face them. After the interview ended, Piqué added one last sentence that never makes the headlines. But it should. He said that against Messi you feel stupid, but against Ronaldo you feel guilty. Guilty because you knew what was going to happen. Guilty because you prepared for it. Guilty because everyone will say you should have done better. Messi leaves you without explanations, Ronaldo leaves you without excuses. And that difference matters, because football culture forgives confusion. It never forgives mistakes. That's why some defenders rewatch matches against Messi in silence, while matches against Ronaldo replay in their heads for years, not as highlights, but as warnings. There's one last detail in Piqué's story that's rarely discussed. When defenders talk about Messi, they lower their voice. When they talk about Ronaldo, they raise it. And that says everything. Messi humiliates you in silence. There's no duel to lose, no clash to point at, no specific mistake to blame. The replay doesn't even help you. You just watch the space open up and wonder why you didn't feel it sooner. Ronaldo humiliates you publicly, in the air, in the box, in front of millions. With a jump, a run, a shot that tells the world you arrived late. Piqué's confession forces us to ask a question fans rarely consider. Is football more cruel when it exposes your weakness, or when it makes you doubt your intelligence? Because in the end, defenders don't remember the goals. They remember the feeling after the goal. And Messi and Ronaldo left two very different scars. So now we ask you, if you had to choose one nightmare as a defender, losing your position or losing your nerve, which one would break you faster? Write your answer in the comments. And if you enjoy football stories told from inside the battle, like, share, and subscribe to the channel, because legends are admired by fans, but they are defined by the fear they create in their rivals.